Perfect. Welcome everyone to the Town of Greater Napanee regular session of council for the 11th day of June 2024. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that this evening's meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the Town of Greater Napanee YouTube channel. So if you don't have the ability to watch tonight, it'll be on the YouTube channel. You can watch it anytime from now to eternity. So welcome everyone. And we'll start off with our closed session that we had this evening. I'll look for a motion to rise and report from closed session. Moved by Councillor Norrie, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. I'd like to report that in closed session this evening, we approved the closed session minutes of the May 28th meeting, and we received information regarding a matter related to the security of municipal assets. Having said that, we'll look for a motion for the adoption of the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none. This evening, we'll start off with our presentation portion of the meeting. And we're quite happy this evening to be able to present the Senior of the Year for the Town of Greater Napanee. The Senior of the Year award gives each municipality in Ontario the opportunity to honor one outstanding local Ontarian who, after the age of 65, has enriched the social, cultural, and civic life of their community. This year, I am honored to present the Senior of the Year award to Rick Ravel. And we'll have you come up here just briefly, Rick. I'm just going to read some information with respect to what we received and how we come to that conclusion. So, Rick is an Algonquin First Nation man who is a successful author of the Algonquin Quest series and whose most recent novel, The Elk Whistle Warrior Society, was published last year. After completing one career and retiring in 2002, Rick began his career as an author, getting published at the age of 60, which is really quite amazing. Rick has volunteered at cultural days with the town and sharing stories with children and adults. He has been a founder of the Literacy Circle to encourage writers from around the area to navigate the industry and share his journey as an author. In the education system, he has visited thousands of classes with all three local school boards, as well as others across Ontario and Manitoba. He was a huge part of a recent donation to the Limestone District School Board, and specifically Charlotte Lake Education Center, gifting them furs, his arrow collection, and many more items to give students and the community a hands-on experience with the Indigenous Algonquin culture. He is always willing to share his knowledge. You will often find Rick in the summer on the local golf courses as well. We are very lucky to have Rick as part of the Greater Napanee community, and he is much deserved of this nomination. So thank you, Rick, and we'll present you with a presentation. There you go.
I guess it shows my longevity. I lived this long. I have to mention something. I don't know if Billy Martin remembers me. I don't know if the council knows that Billy was a chef when he was younger. And I was his dishwasher 56 years ago. Between Odessa and Napanee. That was a long time ago, Bill. But we had a lot of fun. He, you know something, he never once said to me, there's a spot on this fork or a spot on this plate. So I guess I must have did pretty good as a dishwasher. I'd like to thank Karen Blanchard Randall for nominating me for this award. I remember the first time I was in one of her classrooms And it started me on my journey. It was about 8 or 9 years ago. It was QECVI. And I did the week before, the first classroom I was ever in was a grade 8 class in Amersfoort, and all these hands went up and all sorts of questions. And after I was done in Karen's class, it was a grade 9 or 10 class, and I said, I bombed. This, nobody asked a question at all. And she said, this is high school. This is the way they are. But she said, they loved you. And how do you know they love you? Because when you read, no phones were on and nobody fell asleep. So I realized now, high school, when you go, since then, I've talked to over 20,000 kids in Manitoba and and from Toronto to the Quebec border. And you go into elementary school, especially I do JK to grade 12. And you go in an elementary school and the little JKs, their hands are up all the time. And you got to ask them, the first thing you got to ask them is this a story or a question? Because they're going to tell you a story about what happened at home the night before, what they ate, what their parents were doing. So, but once you work your way up, grade 7, 8 in high school, the hands don't go up, but they'll come up at the end and ask you questions. So not in front of their peers. I'd like to introduce my wife, Muriel, who we've been married for 47 years. And she's hung through with me for all the stuff that I did. I coached ball, won 3 Ontario championships, won in Napanee, one of the greatest ball teams I ever coached up here with Peter Finn. I can still remember we played Verona. Verona had never ever been beaten, ever. And we beat them in a 7-game series. Over 10,000 people attended those games. It was in 1980. It was one, and we won 4 games in Verona, and they won 3 here. And my wife has always been with me. The porch light has always been on when I came home, so that's a big thing. Judy Merrill, an author from my Napanee Writers Forum. Judy's got a book coming out in about 3 or 4 weeks, so her second book. And Michelle Cole, she's also in my Writers Forum, which we started 4 years ago, but during COVID. We started it during COVID. And now the Writers Forum, we next year will be our 3rd year running a Writers Festival, raising money for Napanee literacy. And we've had great success with that. And, yeah, I appreciate Karen. I nominated Karen for a Governor General's Award. She made it to one of the finals in Canada for something she did at Napanee District School. But I remember she always said, I'd love to teach at a reserve. And that was always her dream. So her and her husband, Josh, were building a brand new house. They sold their house, so they were building a house. And she said, Rick, we bought a trailer. We're going to live in the trailer over the winter. He said, what? With the 2 kids? She said, yes. She says, it's got a nice kitchen, though. I said, Karen, this is your chance to go teach at a reserve. I said, I can get you a job in a week in Manitoba if you want a job. And this was in July. And by second week of August, she was at Cranberry Portage. She was a vice principal of residence. And Cranberry Portage is a unique place because the Frontier School Board, I've been out for 2 visits with the Frontier School Board in Churchill, Manitoba and God's Lake Narrows, both fly-in communities. And Cranberry Portage was an old Army base, and Frontier School Board bought this, and it's a residence of 220 kids in the residence for all the reserves that do not have high school. And they either go to Winnipeg and have to survive there, or they come to Cranberry Portage. And so she was the vice president there, or vice principal. And then the second year, they loved her so much, they made her principal of the whole school. And they begged her to stay, but she had to come back to Napanee. But, pardon me? The house was built, yes. So the house was built, and but they really enjoyed her out there, and she enjoyed out there. And I was glad I was able to give her that choice to go out there, and she did a great job. And so this award, I really appreciate her putting me in for this award. I've been lucky. It's sugar at the end of my life. I've written 5 books. The 5th book I've written has been somebody has the rights to it to make it a TV series. Tantu Cardinal. I don't know if you know who Tantu Cardinal is. She's one of the most famous Aboriginal Indigenous actresses in Canada, north of 60, Dancing with Wolves, Killers of the Flower Moon, just to name a few of them. She read this book and she said, I've been looking for something like this all my whole life. So she hasn't given me any money yet. She's trying to produce it, and hopefully before both of us pass away, one of us, this will go. And before I leave, this book, my first 4 books were take place in the 1300s, and it's about 4 brothers trying to survive in this area. If you read my book, they start in this area, and if you read my books, you will travel from Newfoundland to the Rocky Mountains, and they were placed in between down to South Dakota. And my books are used in school boards across Canada, Native Studies classes. Not every school board uses it, but a lot of school boards. Frontier School Board uses it because 80% of their students are Indigenous. And Upper Canada Board, I get a lot of work with them. And Limestone carries it in all their schools, in their libraries. My books are in every library in Canada, which is, like I said, sugar at the end of my life. And so those books have been successful. My last book, which I'm quite proud of, is doing quite well, and women really like reading it. It's about a secret society of Native women who hunt down human traffickers and murderers of Indigenous women. And all these women have either a PhD or a master's, and they all have a martial arts black belt. They're all teachers, lawyers, social workers, and they hunt down these people that kill women and the human traffickers and abuse the Native children. And they've got a lot of money behind them. There's a group called the Guardians. The society is over 600 years old. And a lot of it takes place around here, but across North America. And I'm writing the second book right now. Before I leave, there's a poem at the start of the book I want to read to you. And I mentored a young girl on Twitter. Mayor and I were talking about social media and how much we didn't like it. But on Twitter, I met this teacher from Saskatchewan. Said, I've got this young girl in grade 11. She has a great voice. She's Cree, and I need somebody to mentor her. She said, I can't take her any farther. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll work with her. And I've worked with her for the last 4 years. She should be published by now, but it's just trying to get an 18 or 19-year-old girl to know how good she is, to do the work, to send the query letters out and everything. And she just sent me a note last week. She's pregnant. She's 19, she's pregnant. She grew up she's from the Cree Palmaker Reserve in Saskatchewan. Her brother and her sister-in-law raised her. She's amazing as far as a poet. I can't believe how she writes. She writes about reservation life, and so there's a poem in here that I want to read you, and it's the start of my book, and it really sets off the book. So I don't know. Hopefully I can hold.
Yeah, we'll see if we can give you a hand holding the button down there, Rick.
So her name is Mercedes Tate, and her Cree name is Asinawe Iskwe, which means rock woman. And at this time, this was in 2021. She was 17 years old when she wrote this, and she kindly let me use it at the start of my book. It's called "Have You Seen My Sister?" You there, have you seen my sister? Her skin is like she's been steeped in red rose tea. Her long black hair is usually bound by braids. She's about 5'4", 5'6", just a little taller than me. She looks like a painting within a painting. Her body is abundant in artistry. Her cheekbones sit high above the rest of her chiseled face. You'd know her if you saw her. Have you seen my sister? No one will help me look. She goes by Nit-A Sana Iskwe and Nikawi, to her son. How do I tell my nephew we couldn't find his mom? Excuse me, officer, did you not hear what I said? My sister has been missing. I can't help but think that she's... One morning she was here. That night she was no longer. If you could hear her sing, her song would now be somber. Have you seen my sister? She's a human much like you. Her hair is not blonde and her eyes are not blue, but her home gun is well over me. And that's by Mercedes Tate, a young girl from Palmaker Reservation in Saskatchewan. Thank you. I appreciate this award, and I appreciate living this long to be able to write my books. My wife and I moved here to Napanee 5 years ago. We sold our house. We lived in Glen Burnie for over 30 years, and we live in Red Tree Estates now. We love Napanee. We absolutely love retail, Red Tree Estates. And my wife says, don't ever do anything to get us thrown out of here. She said, don't ever have Lindsay or Dwayne get mad at you. So no, we love it here. And Napanee has got everything. I don't know if you know how great a town this is. And I always used to read Beaver and read about Napanee for 20, 25 years. I'd come up here and coach. Your town is a well-kept secret. And you got everything here. And it's growing. And I do some accounts in Napanee. My accounts I work for a big company and a couple of days a week, and my accounts in the last 3 or 4 years have grown by 50%. It's amazing. You have an amazing town here. Be proud of it. And I was telling Terry that one of our ladies it'll be announced soon, but I want to say tonight, one of our ladies in my writers group just bought a publishing company that's well known across Canada, and it's going to be in Napanee now, a book publishing company. So that's another big advantage. It's called Crossfield, and it's going to be Crossfield Scott. And we're really proud of her, aren't we? Eh? Yeah. So thank you, Napanee. I appreciate what you did for me. And if you ever get a chance to read my books, they're in the library here.
Great. Thank you, Rick, and very well done. Yeah, we appreciate it, and thank you again, Rick. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, great. Thank you, and thank you again. Well, that was a very tough, it's going to be a very tough act to follow, but we'll continue on. Next up, we have a public meeting, and we'll look for a motion to go in to have our public resolution to convene the public meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calvary, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. This evening's public meeting is with respect to an unopened road allowance closure and sale request. The applicant is Calvary Church, and I know that the applicant is here in the body of the council chambers this evening. And the location is of the unopened road allowance is between lots 18, 19, Concession 1, Geographic, Township of Richmond. Mr. Nobes, I think he's here. Is there anything that you would like to add, or is there anything like you'd like to speak to with respect to this public meeting? Oh, why, thank you, Madam Clerk. I guess I should have looked to my left. Jess, did you want to take over?
So through your worship, this process is under our sale of road allowance policy to allow any member of the public who believes they may be harmed by a potential road closure or otherwise has concerns they want to bring to council's attention, this is the opportunity given to do that. To date, we have not received anything in writing in response to the public notice. So this would also be, if there's any outstanding questions council wants to ask of the applicant, this would be your opportunity to do so. And then we do have a report later on the agenda to consider this application.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And just to state the obvious, that the applicant is the only person that's in the body of the council chambers at this point. So does any member of council have any questions of the applicant or the clerk with respect to the public meeting? Seeing none, having said that, we'll look for a resolution to adjourn the public meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calvary, seconded by Councillor Pennell. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Deputation, scheduled deputations with respect to new items, and I don't believe we have anything this evening, Madam Clerk. Deputations with respect to items on the agenda, and I don't believe we have any of those either. Correspondence items on the agenda, and I don't believe we have any of those either. Moving on to unfinished business. Is there any items of unfinished business anyone would like to bring to our attention? Seeing none, and we'll move directly into the administrative consent agenda, and we'll do what we normally do. We'll sort of break this down, and then we'll look for a motion afterwards. First up are the council minutes for the regular session of council for the 28th day of May, 2024. Is there anything in those minutes anyone would like to bring to our attention, have a discussion about? Seeing none, the committee minutes of the Arts Advisory Committee and the Municipal Heritage Committee. Is there anything in those minutes that anyone would like to ask or bring to our attention? And I know that Councillor Martin, I believe you're the Municipal Heritage Committee. Is there anything in those minutes that you would like to bring to anyone's attention?
No, the report pretty much speaks for itself, and Madam Clerk has captured the minutes very well, so everything's there in the report.
Great, thanks, Councillor Martin. And Councillor Norrie, I believe you're the Arts Advisory Committee. Is there anything in there that you'd like to bring to anyone's attention?
No, as written. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Norrie. Correspondence for information items dated the 11th of June, 2024. Is there anything in those correspondence of information items anyone would like to pull out or have a conversation about? Seeing none, memorandums of delegated authority, mobile traffic lights, and the North Fredericksburg Hall flooring. With respect to this report, is there anything anyone would like to have any conversations with or ask any questions? I see Deputy Mayor Calvary, I think, and then we'll go to Councillor Pennell. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Calvary. Yeah, we just got to get you to use your button there too, Brian. Sorry.
So looking at this is for the mobile traffic lights. I was just wondering, like, do we not already own a set or two of them, or how many sets of these do we need? I'm not, do we have some? Oh, yeah, Mr. Defoe, I think he can probably, he's reaching for the mic. So go ahead, Pete, whenever you're ready.
Through your worship, the purpose of these lights are to basically replace using staff to do traffic control versus like a mobile message board.
Okay, so we don't own a set of these lights now, Pete?
Through worship, to the best of my ability, we don't have a set already.
Okay, I just thought I'd seen them being used on the.
Through worship, we have rented them from time to time. That's perhaps where you've seen them.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Defoe, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Calvary. If there's nothing else, we'll go to Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, I just was looking at the submittals from the two companies, and it states that one of the companies didn't meet all of the obligations, and reading the submissions, they look identical. So I'm just wondering what the difference was to make us want to go with the higher price company.
Mr. Defoe, can you comment on that? Go ahead.
Through your worship, one of the main factors on that is how user-friendly the equipment is. So the recommended equipment is much more user-friendly, stores better, transports better. That's basically the biggest value in that. The other equipment is more cumbersome and would require different transportation.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Thanks to Mr. Defoe. Is there any other questions or comments with respect to those two reports or memorandums? Seeing none, infrastructure services, utilities, water pollution control plant, WPCP, sludge heat exchanger, single sourcing report. Is there any comments or questions with respect to that report? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Gower.
Yeah, just see a lot of single sourcing on these reports. I'm just trying to figure out why all of a sudden everything's single source, single source. Just looking for some clarification on that.
Go ahead, Ms. Hamill.
Through your worship. So we would have to look at each one individually, but in this one in particular, the reason that we're going through a sole source is the fact that we were twinning existing equipment that's currently in the facility. So we have language in our procurement bylaw to offer us the ability to single source this, and it provides for standardization of our equipment that we already have.
Excellent. I was just looking for some clarification. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gower. Thanks, Alan. Is there any other questions or comments with respect to that report? Seeing none, we do have a consent agenda motion that council consent to the approval of the following routine items: that the minutes of the regular session of council dated May 28, 2024 be adopted as presented, that the draft Arts Advisory Municipal Heritage Committee minutes of May 7th to 16th, 2024 be received for information, that the correspondence for information items dated June 11th, 2024 be received, that council receive for information the memorandums of delegated authority for mobile traffic lights and North Fredericksburg Hall flooring under the procurement policy bylaw, and that council receive for information the infrastructure services, utilities, WPCP sludge heat exchanger single sourcing report, and further that council direct staff to single source the WPCP sludge heat exchanger from Claro Inc. at a cost of $104,100. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there is no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next on the agenda, items for consideration. Request to close and convey unopened road allowance, Belleville Road. Madam Clerk, are you going to speak to that?
So through your worship, as mentioned in this report, this application was originally considered by council last fall. At that point, council gave approval to continue through the process. Over the past few months, our surveyor has been working with the county road staff to ensure that future roads needs at this location will be accommodated through the survey and road closure process. And that is just wrapping up as noted at the end of this report. Normally, if council agrees to finalize the approval for this application, we would pass the bylaw at the same meeting. We're just waiting on the finalization of that survey plan, so we can't do the bylaw tonight. But if council approves this application, we will bring that bylaw forward as soon as we can.
Great, thanks, Madam Clerk. Does anyone, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
I'll move staff recommendation.
Great. Councillor Shank moves staff recommendation. Councillor Norrie seconded it. Is there any comments or questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Gower.
Just for anybody from the rec committee watching, this was well underway before we voted to have all road closure or road allowances go through the rec committee. This was, like I say, it was well underway in this particular one. I've looked at it and it would never, ever be a trail anyways. So I just want to make that clear.
Great, thanks, Deputy Mayor Calvary. Is there any other comments or questions with respect to a motion that we have on the floor? That being that council receive for information the request to close and convey unopened road allowance Belleville Road report, and further that council approve the road closure and direct that a bylaw to close and convey the land be passed subject to the following conditions. The council consider and decide on the merits of written and verbal submissions received up to and including council meeting, and that should new information be received or further input received, raise points for further consideration. This report and opinion herein be revisited as needed. And we do have a motion on the floor. We'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up is 10.2, cyber incident recommendation and review. And I think, Dave, you're going to speak to that. So whenever you get to the front and get settled, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've not too much to add to the report that's been presented, but I would ask that council consider the two recommendations. The first being that we replace our existing security solution with a managed service through Solace, which will further extend our security suite and enhance protection. And the second ask is that rather than revert back and restore the system that we had in place prior to the attack with physical hardware, that we continue hosting our servers in a cloud environment, again, to enhance security features. And I'll welcome any questions.
Thanks, Dave. Is there any questions or comments for Dave's, with respect to Dave's report or the presentation that he's made? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, Dave, you obviously are bringing this to our attention. I just want to make sure that you're 100% satisfied with your report that you wrote and that this is the way that you would recommend that we go.
Absolutely, yes.
I know it sounds funny to ask that question, but I just want to make sure before we make this decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Is there anything else? Yep, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
As everybody will do the math, that's basically $100,000, but you know what? If this is security, it could save us a lot in the long run. So you're the IT expert. You've done your homework, and I agree with the staff recommendation.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Councillor Shank. Is there anything else? Madam Clerk wants to weigh in. Go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, through your worship, I did just want to highlight that Finance has requested a minor tweak to the staff recommendation at the end of that motion, that any additional costs be accommodated through operating or capital budget as a first effort. And then if that cannot be done, then through reserves. We just were missing the or capital in the original recommendation.
Great, thanks, Madam Clerk. Is there anything else or any other comments? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation before us, and we'll look for a motion moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, just briefly, unfortunately, this is the world we're living in now, and it's hard to imagine that we have to guard information that's maybe not even in this building, but it's just the world we're living in, and I'm sure that it's going to get worse before it gets better. So thank you, Dave, for the work you've done on this. So if there's no further comments or questions, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up is Infrastructure Services, the AL Dafo and Sandhurst Shores Drinking Water Systems, SCADA upgrades. And I see Andrew's going to present that whenever you get comfortable, Andrew.
Yes, through your worship to council, the previous incident just gave us an opportunity to take a look at our SCADA system and control overall for both of our water treatment plants. And instead of dealing in errors in that system as they've arisen, we took a holistic approach, including our IT department, Dave in particular, and we've come to a conclusion that the system can be upgraded. Some benefits include we're going to have some cellular backup, so when we lose phone lines, we're not going to have operators man the plant 24 hours a day. It gives us some increased capacity for remote monitoring, which is especially important for Sandhurst Shores Water Treatment Plant. And the company we're proposing to go with is local and proven to be reliable to us throughout the last 3 to 4 months. And I'm available for any questions.
Thanks, Andrew. Is there any questions or comments with respect to, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Calvary.
So again, this is another one of the single sourced items. And this is like basically a security upgrade. Is this correct?
There is security components to it in regards to firewalls to ensure the operations of those water plants aren't vulnerable to outside control. But there's more to it. There's software and hardware that runs our processes there, as well as data that's captured that we require to do calculations like chlorine calculations that we're required to do and keep on record for the ministry.
Okay, so the reason it was sole source is because we're already using part of this and we're just going to continue with it.
Yeah, through your worship, we had some issues with a previous contractor. And so this company has stepped up locally for us, spent hours with our operators, and have done similar work, and mapped out similar work for smaller municipalities such as ourselves and similar water plants.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Deputy Mayor Calvary. Is there any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Andrew, very good report. What I like better than anything else, and from all the money that has been spent tonight, it's been within the budget and can be realized other ways. But it says here, there will be no negative effect on the utilities budget because there will be possibly your $18,800 difference, but that'll be savings from the other capital work projects that you already have. So that's a green light for me. So it's an upgrade for security, especially in our water system. So yeah, I agree with it.
Yeah, through your worship, if we had to look at a direct capital offset, it would be the purchase of the forklift that we have at our new maintenance shop. The dollars are very close or just over that difference. So we have those monies available.
Great, thanks, thanks, Councillor Shank. Councillor Martin.
Andreas, very good report. The security aspect of it, I understand. Are we going to save manpower as well because of the remote workings of this?
Yeah, through your worship, we'll still have operators visit the plants daily. AL Dafo is manned all day. Sandhurst Shores, we have an operator go down daily, even on weekends and holidays, to do rounds, make sure everything's working properly in that community's service. Where we might realize some savings is when we have alarm issues or hard-lined phone issues. And we've had to have operators in the recent past, last month, spend a night over at the water treatment plant. And so from a managerial standpoint, yes, that becomes expensive.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Is there anything else? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the infrastructure services AL Dafo and Sandhurst Shores Drinking Water System SCADA upgrades report. And further, that council approve the purchase and single sourcing of the required software and hardware to the upgrade of the SCADA systems from ARC Integration Inc. at a cost of $72,800. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up, the infrastructure services, utilities master plan proposal evaluation. And I see Mr. Dafoe's coming up. So whenever you get up and ready, Pete, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Worship. I'll start off with the two key points of the staff report is why do we need a utilities master plan and how much does it cost? So there's kind of four key areas. We need to better define any bottlenecks we have in our existing infrastructure and plan for the cost and the timing component for that. We need to plan for future growth, and we also need to get some background information that will be critical to move forward to get into a formalized rate study to see where water rates should be in the future. And then the last component to that will be developing long-term capital budgets. So it's critical information. It's the backbone of utilities. It's kind of where we are, where we're going. And with respect to cost, there were four bidders. Prices ranged fairly significantly. So the highest bid was by Ainley. They were $262,453. Concept Dash was in the second highest at $240,390. JL Richards was the lowest bid at $149,685. And the evaluation team, after going through the evaluation criteria, recommended the second lowest bidder for EVB Engineering for 176 out of 780. So the approach to that the firms took on this were a little bit different. They had defined outcomes they had to meet. The evaluation team deemed the EVB proposal the best overall. There's just a few highlights I'll touch on the way through. The way this was evaluated, the staff report identifies the core content of what staff did as far as the exercise. I'll touch a little bit on the breakdown from technical to price submissions. So it was 55 technical and then 45% for price. So there was parts of the RFP were very defined. So that's why the price component started to creep up, getting closer to what you'd see in a tender. But the 55%, the technical component, was where you would really see firms start to shine. So the recommended firm that you have in front of you provided some really neat, innovative ways to look at long-term capital planning within our water treatment facilities. And it's basically stress testing of the individual components with potential re-rating. So that is very minor dollars, perhaps, to increase system capacity. So there's some really neat approaches that they did for that. With respect to the recommendation in front of you, so EVB Engineering's teamed with Seaman Plus. So they're a huge firm, tons of resources. The staff report contains a few bullets with respect to some of the advantages they offer to some of the competing firms. With respect to cost, this is something staff are recommending that is paid for out of DC funds. So that's funds that sit in reserves that were paid by development. So it's not the user pay group, the existing customers that it would be paying for it. And part of this project too is there is public consultation. So the public will have lots to say, and there will be public meetings to incorporate any thoughts in that. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
Thanks, Pete. Is there any questions or comments with respect to Pete's presentation or the report that's before us? Seeing none, and we do have, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
When would this master fire plan take and when completion?
Through your worship, the utilities master plan would be completed 1 year from today at the latest.
Is there anything in the contract when you award the contract that they go beyond the 1 year, that there's going to be a certain contingency or a certain amount taken off the signed contract? It's just that in the past that I've seen in the last year and a half that we've been on council is anything that is on some, I'm not saying these individuals by any means, but there has been some that they were said, okay, the report's going to be done in 3 months, and then 8 months later, we're still waiting for the report. I just don't want to fall in that boat. Or is there any safeguards that you have in place in case this ever happens?
Through your worship, so the authorization that staff is looking for is to award this work, and we'll enter into a municipal engineering agreement, and there will be some safeguards with respect to timing on that. I can assure you, though, that the scope of work and the timing that we allocated for that, it's an easy task. They will finish likely a couple months ahead of schedule.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Shank. Is there anything else? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the Infrastructure Services Utilities Master Plan Proposal Evaluation Report. And further, that council accepts the procurement process RFP-UT-2024-01 undertaken by municipal staff as having met the goals and principles of the municipal procurement policies forming part of the Town of Greater Napanee Bylaw 2021-0046 as amended. And further, that council authorize staff to award the contract to EVB Engineering for a fee of $176,780 excluding HST. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Shank. If there's no further, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Only one thing is, Peter, is because of the expenditures and capital outlay that we're going to have to do for waste management or sewage plants and stuff. This study, this master plan that you're going to be doing, or that EVB Engineering is going to be doing, would only help solidify any future grants that we might be going for provincially, federally, or anything else like this. This plan isn't just for this. we can use this plan elsewhere, going for grants and everything else?
Through your worship, this plan can be used in multiple ways. So it's very beneficial for land use planning. So you need to know where your bottlenecks are, what is possible through an infrastructure perspective on where you want to build. So it aligns nicely with what Mr. Nobes does. And with respect to future grants, you'll know what infrastructure you need, so it puts you in a good position. You'll have estimated cost. This plan will even identify the studies that are required. So if you're looking at building large infrastructure, there's environmental assessments that are required. So you'll know long in advance what's required, when to start it, what the objectives are. All that's identified.
Great, thanks, Councillor Shank. If there's nothing further, we do have a motion on the floor. We'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Infrastructure services, utilities, maintenance, garage, site security. And I see Ms. Kelly. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Davo.
Through your worship, if I could just make one final comment before I turn the mic over. I just want to reassure council, there's been a couple of comments on sole sourcing with respect to major equipment. I'll give you one example. So the heat exchanger that's being replaced, we put a new heat exchanger in several years ago. Based on the technical review, it surpassed everything. It had glowing reviews. It's already been removed from service. So to have compatible equipment, easy to repair, easy to maintain equipment is worth a significant value. The heat exchanger that was removed was the latest and greatest at the time, but basically came out of scrap metal. So the review and the sole sourcing report that Andrew provided to you, it's a piece of equipment that will save the town money long term. So
Great, thanks, Pete. And I think Christy's going to come up to provide some information with respect to the maintenance garage site security. So whenever you're settled in there, Christy, the floor is yours.
Our utilities maintenance garage is nearing completion and requires site security for the site. This includes surveillance cameras, motion detectors, an intrusion alarm system, and electronic strike access. We did include this in our original scope of work for the design build, but we pulled it from the project because the price submitted exceeded our expectations. We've worked together with our IT department to find a viable solution, repurposing some existing camera equipment the town owns and reducing the scope of work for this project. We put out 3 quotes to alarm companies in our that we've worked with in the past or in our area, and did receive 3 quotes. They all were slightly different approaches based on their assessment of the needs at the site, but we're recommending moving forward with R&M Security Solutions for $17,000 and change. This is work that we have spoken with the alarm companies, and they're again, as we're nearing completion on the maintenance garage, this is work that they can complete for us relatively quickly. And while we're formally recommending that the purchase and installation is funded through utilities reserves, we do expect to realize savings in the capital budget for 2024 to offset the costs. And I'm available for any questions.
Thanks, Christy. Is there any comments or questions for Christy with respect to her report or the presentation? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation before us that council receive for information the infrastructure services, utilities, maintenance, garage, site security report, and further that council authorize staff to proceed with securing the services of R&M Security Solutions for the purchase and the install of site security equipment at the maintenance garage for a fee of $17,495 excluding HST. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calvary, second by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Town of Greater Napanee Blue Box Transition Report Number 2, 2025 Transitional Year Curbside Collection Agreement with Circular Materials Ontario. And I see Andrew coming back up. So when you get settled, Andrew, the floor will be yours.
Yes, through your worship, just a few highlights in this report. That curbside collection of blue box materials for 2025 will remain the same in Napanee. The background of it and how we're subsidized from it from SEMO will change. And I think 2025 is going to be a really important year from us from a communication standpoint and talking with the public about curbside collection and the changes and especially our non-eligible sources. So just to reiterate, for 2025, our non-eligible sources will continue to be collected, which will give staff a year to communicate with those individuals and businesses on how they might have their blue box materials processed in the future. And I'm available for questions.
Thanks, Andrew. Is there, go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you. Andrew, thanks for the report. Could you give us an example of a non-eligible source?
Yeah, so non-eligible sources include any government building. So the arena, our town hall, Lennox and Addington County buildings, commercial farms, weekend trailer parks, for-profit daycares, and then the big ones are any commercial or industrial premises, any I&I within town.
Okay, thank you. And unfortunately, I wasn't available for the first meeting that we had on this, and I'm sorry if you already discussed this, but why are those companies or those places that you stated not eligible for this?
So through your worship, I'll do my best to answer that question. That's a question that would be better directed to the Ministry of the Environment, who has made the blue box regulation, or the regulation falls under. I believe the idea is that it is so all blue box materials fall back on the producers of those items, and those are for-profit agencies, or I shouldn't say agencies, for-profit entities, and therefore just like I guess snow plowing or garbage disposal to some nature in some towns, they're responsible for their own expenses.
Thank you. And just to follow up, so as a consumer, are we going to be looking at a price increase at when we purchase this now? Is that how this is going to work?
Through your worship, once again, a good question for the producers or Circular Materials Ontario. However, I have read several news articles that things have already increased in price. So your bottle of pop would be the easiest example. Your bottle of water, you'll see a surcharge on there that will be built into the price of those products. So as an average consumer, you're going to see an increase and you're going to offset these costs as a society. As a township, we're no longer going to have to pay for them. So good news story for the town. Same story as a consumer. Things keep getting more expensive.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize about those questions, but I wasn't sure if they were already answered, but thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. I think we did go through some of that. So it's not going to be as, it doesn't appear it's going to be as squeaky clean or simple transition as we might have thought initially, I think. So there's going to be a lot of work to be done yet. So in 2025. So I agree, Andrew. So go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So in the meantime, because the Ministry of Environment is looking after this, that Andrew and you and the mayor and Jessica, the clerk, could sit down and draft up a letter, or if you want me to help you, stating that we have such a large, what you call commercial farms, or a lot of farming, community agricultural works here that produce a lot and have a lot for recycling. I know the recycling that I put out at the farm today way exceeded my half a bag of garbage. And if you take the farmers out of this, and what do you think they're going to do with it? All right. So if they want to save the planet or do something this way, to go after commercial farms or farmers and not pick up the recycling, I just don't see that somebody in Toronto must have thought up of this one that sits in a city. Like, we feed you people, and then they're going to go ahead and say, no, you're not going to pick up a recycling. So what do you think, what's the farmer going to do? You know what I mean? So if you could draft up a letter and come up with some rationale and to find out how in God's green earth they even came up with an idea like this to take out farmers is just beyond me. Somebody that's lived in the city too long has never been in the countryside. So if you could do that for me, I think I'd greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shake. I think probably in the very near future, we'll probably start with a fairly aggressive public relations type attitude. And it's not just going to be our municipality as well. I think probably every municipality around us is going to find that they're going to have a whole lot of public relations stuff to be dealing with respect to this. So it's good that we've recognized that at this point and we can be ready to hit the road running in 2025. But I agree that it's probably going to take all of 2025 and maybe the last half of 2024 to try and get the word across that there are going to be some heartaches and some bumps in the road with respect to this program. So go ahead.
So you don't want to do a letter to the Ministry of Environment?
Yes, we can. We can, if you want to put a motion on the floor with respect to a ministry,
Because
we can do that.
If it's a PR with the farmers recycling, so you can PR me all you want, but if you're not going to pick it up, I'm still getting nothing. So how are you going to look after my recycling? That's something that you were going to have to do it. And I'll wait till notice of motion that we do that.
Yeah, just quickly
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
through your worship, I've had some early chats with communications about drafting a report to bring to council as to our strategy to communicate with the public about the transition. There's lots of material the province has provided us to get out to residents and lots of form letters and things we have from other townships. But a letter to the ministry candidate, I think we've had some through the chamber already from other townships.
Thanks, Andrew. I think what we'll do is we'll do a motion with respect to your report and with respect to your presentation. Then we'll entertain a motion from Councillor Shank to send a letter to the ministry and make sure that they are aware of the pending bumps in the road that we're going to see. So start off, is there anything further that anyone would like to ask Andrew with respect to the Circular Materials Ontario or the presentation that he's done? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through Andrew, as I read further down in here, this says that $200 a ton will be deducted from this for collection of non-eligible sources. So if they're not going to pick it up, then why are they going to pick it up and why are they going to charge us? Sorry, if they're not going to recycle it, if it's not eligible, why are they going to do it?
So through your worship, this report speaks specifically to 2025, which is our transitional year, which when I brought the blue box transition to council in March, council passed a resolution to opt in with Circular Materials Ontario for blue box for eligible and non-eligible curbside, and therefore our non-eligible will be included. We are, as you can see in the report, we're going to be subsidized a price per stop per month for that material, but when that material reaches the processing facility, Circular Materials Ontario is paying that processing facility directly for that material, and therefore they're going to deduct based on a percentage $200 per ton of non-eligible sources that show up at that door.
Thank you. I see that this should not have been a meeting that I missed. There was a lot of things covered in that. So once again, I apologize and thank you for the answer.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. And I think there will be sufficient time to get caught up. It's not going to be easy. So go ahead, Councillor Shank.
The reason why we had to opt into it is because you were given no other choice financially. All right, because it says you will no longer be receiving a diversion grant through the Resource Production or Productivity and Recovery Authority in 2025. So we're not getting the diversion grant. We already paid an absorbent fee for waste collection and recycling. So financially, we had to do what we did. Well, all I'm saying is that to reduce the amount of recycling pickups, especially from the amount of farmers that we have in our community, it just doesn't make sense.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. With respect to this report, and then we'll come back to Councillor Shank for a motion, we do have a recommendation, if there's nothing further, a recommendation that council receive for information the Town of Greater Napanee Blue Box Transition Report Number 2, 2025 Transitional Year Curbside Collection Agreement with Circular Materials Ontario, and further that council enter into an agreement with Circular Materials Ontario for the curbside collection of the blue box materials for the 2025 transitional year. Moved by Councilor Martin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calvary. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. And Councillor Shank, I think you've got a very valid point. So if you would like to make the motion now, would be the appropriate time, I think.
So my motion will basically, Jessica, you can redo it the way it's supposed to be done, is that we send a letter to the Ministry of Environment or to the appropriate authority, all right, with the mayor, the clerk, and Andrew working on it, that the displeasure and the rationale of not picking up at commercial farms. All right, there's a lot of small farmers, there's a lot of large farmers in our community, and especially in the county of Lennox and Addington. So not to pick up recyclable materials for what a farm produces, all right, it doesn't make any sense. There's a large amount of farmers. I'm not sure the exact amount of farmers that we have in our community, all right, but are in the county, that a letter to the Ministry of Environment with our displeasure and to reverse their decision of not picking up at commercial farms.
Great, thanks, Councillor Shank. And did you want to just leave it with the farms, or did you want to include any of the other excluded companies or businesses?
I'd like to add campgrounds to that motion.
I believe campgrounds would they be excluded as well, Andrew?
Through your worship, correct. So a non-year-round trailer park would be excluded. So for instance, Richmond Trailer Park year-round is included in the program, and Adolphus Park or Bass Cove would not be included.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Shank. It's your motion, and you're more than willing to do a friendly amendment to it. Madam Clerk would like to weigh in first, so.
Sorry, through your worship, I just did want to note that council has already sent one letter to the ministry on this topic back in March, covering all non-eligible sources. At that time, I believe specifically the concern were government buildings, daycares, etc. So we have already sent one letter on this topic. It certainly doesn't hurt to keep sending letters, but just for everybody's awareness.
Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So I just don't want to, sometimes if you put too much into the motion, it's going to muddy the waters. I agree with what Deputy Mayor Calvary is saying about campgrounds also, but I want to just this one here, just strictly, if you want to send another one also with campgrounds, then fine. But just in this, I'd like to send it to the county also, all right, and send this on through to AMO, all right? So we can get, there's a lot of other farming, you know, especially in Western Ontario and all along Lake Ontario here. There's a great amount that, you know, I think any farming community is going to balk at getting this one. So when it gets sent to the county and gets sent to all their municipalities, that will definitely, maybe not just one letter.
Great, thanks. Madam Clerk, do you have the motion of Councillor Shank? And if you do, then we'll put it on the floor and get a seconder. And we'll give you a chance to get caught up. Yep, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So Andrew, does the Ministry of Environment, did they come up any idea what the farmers are going to do with the recycling, or are they going to just crush it and throw it in the garbage bag?
Through your worship, I've sat in on many workshops that's been put on by Circular Materials Ontario, which not the Ministry of the Environment. And they've laid out options we can give them. Some municipalities are helping out, some are not, depending, I think it's an economy of scale plays a factor in this. So there's recommendations of similar commercial premises or BIA groups getting together and funding their own recycling. But to give you a direct answer, no, there's no magic bullet to solve the recycling for the non-eligible sources at this time.
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
So the only reason why I'm asking this is because Circular Materials of Ontario, all right, it's just like MPAC. It's just another little arm of government. It's just a subsidiary. So it's still the government, Ontario government, that's coming up with these ideas. So when they come up with a statement of that they're not going to pick up at commercial farms, I want to understand what the rationale is, because we're supposed to make money. I mean, as a farm, so you live in a house in town, you make money at your job site, and you produce the recycling here, you know what I mean, at your house, but they'll pick it up. But as a farmer, we live on our residence year round like you would in your house, but we're toiling the land to feed you, but they're not going to pick that up. I just understand, I'm trying to grasp the rationale of how a government agency can come up with something. I'd like to have that explained to me. When you're talking to the Circular Materials of Ontario, which is Ontario government, if they could come up with a reasoning why they think this is such a good idea. Because I think they just out to lunch.
Well, if we can get an answer to that, I think we should probably all be buying some lottery tickets. So, Madam Clerk, go ahead, Andrew.
Through your worship, at a minimum, I can ask the question.
Madam Clerk?
So the motion as drafted is that council direct that a letter be sent to the Ministry of Environment expressing concerns about the exclusion of commercial farms from the eligible sources under the Blue Box program, as this is putting an undue burden on the large number of small commercial farms, and council believes this decision will be contrary to the goal of diverting recycling from landfills. And further, the council directed a copy of this letter be sent to the County of Lennox and Addington and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
I do believe that's what Councillor Schenk was intending to say. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moved by Councillor Schenk. Is there a seconder? Councillor Pennell. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Town of Greater Napanee Blue Box Transition Report number 3, Blue Box Materials at Waste Disposal Sites. And Andrew, you're up again. Go ahead.
So through your worship, the beginning or the body of the report, the start of it speaks to just 2025, that those materials will be collected. Same process as the curbside, go to a processing facility where CMO will pay. We're going to be subsidized for the collection of those materials for 2025. Which allows staff a year to educate the public about those sites, and that come 2026 and beyond will no longer be able to collect blue box materials from residents at those sites. The rationale behind that staff has received is that they're collecting it curbside and they're minimizing costs, and so they don't want to collect it from 2 sites. There are some municipalities that are depot only, and so those townships will continue to use depots versus curbside. And then once again, staff are going to bring another report forward with some options for our waste disposal sites moving forward. The thought is that we wanted to get council to start thinking about service levels at those sites.
Thanks, Andrew. Is there any questions or comments with respect to Andrew's presentation or report? Go ahead, Councillor Schenk.
So Andrew, oh gosh, we have a large cottage population during the summertime. They go back to Toronto or wherever they're, on a Monday morning or a Sunday night. The dumps are open Saturdays and Wednesdays through the week. Garbage collection in the south is on a Tuesday. So if they're not gonna pick up, they're not gonna take a lot of the residents that I know that are just temporary or for weekends. They'll go to the dump on a Saturday and minimal use on a Sunday. So if they're not gonna take it and the recycling stays in the box in front of their cottage till Tuesday, how many critters are gonna have that recycling all over the place? You know what I mean? So I'm just mentioning these are the dilemmas that you're going to have. I know they pay more going to the dump, but there's going to be a lot more garbage strewn around the area if you start limiting what you could do. So.
Through your
Go ahead,
worship,
Andrew.
staff has expressed concerns about that at the depots, and we're hoping that we could continue Blue Box service at the depots. The answer we received from Circular Materials Ontario is that we do not own that commodity at that point. That commodity belongs to the producers, and therefore it's not ours to decide what to do with the Blue Box materials.
Thanks, Andrew. Is there any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, this is just a comment. It seems like all these strides that we took forward are going to be taken away, and we're going to go backwards. I'm going to find more of the stuff in a ditch, whether it's somebody throwing it in there or the wind taking it. One of the questions that I had was, are the prices of the commodities going to be going up because we're paying for it? Much like when you buy a tire, there's a tire tax or electronic fees. So there's a fee on there. So if the fee gets paid, then it should be picked up. Doesn't matter if it gets picked up at a single location or many locations. I just can't fathom why they don't want to pick it up at a depot. When we talk about the farmers, those farmers have paid that premium on that product. So why is that not being picked up? I just think that there's a lot more work that needs to be done on this, and I appreciate that it's not a simple answer, but I just can't see how far backwards we're about to go on this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Is there any other comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Calvary.
Yeah, Councillor Pennell, I can assure you the prices are going up. They're already starting to charge it on oil. When you buy oil, there's a fee goes on for your oil cans, so on and so forth. And I agree. As operating a retail business, we're seeing it, and we have no choice but to pass it on. So the consumer is paying for it. I don't understand why it's not being picked up, and that's something we need to do some work on to figure that out, because it's your oil cans and oil buckets are going to end up somewhere.
Thanks, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Calvary. Sorry, Councillor Shank.
Sorry, I was just making the comment, and farmers don't have tractors and we don't go through a lot of oil. So I wonder where those plastic pails and 20-liter pails and
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting 2025, I think. So, and there's obviously a whole ton of work that has to be done. Most of it, I think, is probably outside the realms or the abilities of our municipality. And but we'll work our way through it. Is there anything else anyone else would like to comment with respect to Andrew's report or his presentation? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the Town of Greater Napanee Blue Box Transition Report Number 3, Blue Box Materials at Waste Disposal Sites or Depots, and further that council enter into an agreement with Circular Materials Ontario for the collection and processing of blue box materials at waste disposal sites for the 2025 transitional year. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calvary, second by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Proposed service fees update. And I see Annie's coming up, so whenever you get settled in there, Annie, just the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing more to add at this time, but happy to take any questions.
Is there any comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the proposed service fees update? Councillor Purnell.
Thank you, Worship. Anything, thanks for the report. I just have one question under the fees for the business park sign. It says manufacturing not included. Is that, I know it's a business park, but we do have manufacturing in the business park. So I'm just wondering what that was for.
Through your worship to Councillor Pennell, that's just the manufacturing of the sign. Manufacturers are more than welcome to advertise and everything. It's just for the production of the sign.
Thank you. You have to, I apologize for that. You have to understand, we just went through this recycling thing, right? It's still in my mind, but, and pricing, but thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Councillor Purnell. Is there any other comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the report that is before us this evening? Councillor Shank?
I know I ask this all the time, but I don't have the other documentation, and yeah, I have enough things. Mobile vendor license, class 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and it's new. The current rate is $300. All I'm saying is, and then there's 100 and 150. This is not the same rate. All I'm saying is for a chip truck and somebody who has a business, who's paying business, you know, and property taxes on their restaurant and everything else. If we're supplying hydro and everything else, I know we had this discussion, but Jessica's got her hand up and somebody can answer this.
Go ahead, Jess, I think.
So through your worship, this is just the fee that we would charge someone else. For example, if a local business wanted to set up a fry truck in their parking lot to supplement their business, the fry truck would pay that licensing fee, and that covers the cost of confirming that they've got all their inspections that they need. It's not intended to cover anything more than that. We have a separate fee for any municipal spaces that we rent out that covers the rental rate and the hydro and those sorts of things. And this is just part of overall, we've been trying to consolidate more of our fees that exist in other bylaws under our fees and charges bylaw so that they're all in one place for staff and members of the public to look them up.
Yep, thanks, Councillor Shank. Thanks, Jess. Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the Community and Corporate Services proposed service fees update report, and further, the council direct staff to bring forward an update to the fees for services bylaw in accordance with the recommendations outlined in this report, subject to the town's public notice requirements. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calvary, seconded by Councillor Pennell. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Dog control bylaw review. And Jess, are you going to speak to that one?
So through your worship, this report is just initially to bring forward to council. It's been several years since we've last looked at the dog bylaw. Staff have identified a few areas that we believe could be improved, but there's no pressing time constraint on this, so we plan to have a public consultation page open to receive other feedback. And at this point, we're just looking to make council aware of that plan and to see if there's any specific questions or consideration or direction council wants us to take into account for that public engagement process.
Thanks, Jess. Is there any questions or comments for Jess with respect to the report or the presentation she's presented? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the Legislative Services Dog Control Bylaw Review Report, and further that a draft dog control bylaw which incorporates public feedback be brought forward to a future council meeting for consideration. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calvary. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Proposed Memorandum of Understanding with the Community Foundation for Lennox and Addington, CFFLA. And do we have someone that's going to speak to that? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jess.
Through your worship, I don't have anything else to add to this report, but if there's any questions from council, happy to answer those.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Madam Clerk with respect to this report? Yep, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So Jessica, no, very good. And for $175, you know, for administrating and it keeps the politics out of it, keeps it fair and everything else. And if at the next meeting or future meetings, we have the Atura fund also that we have, you know what I mean? There's a committee that sits on that and that decides where it goes and stuff. Can we get a report that states where the money has gone? Or do we get, just where it's gone, just so when we're asked, all right, through the Atura funding also, what is given and who is given it in the last year? And, is there a surplus? Or do they max out every year? I don't know. But it's same as this. It keeps the politics out of it, and they're just, it has a committee that looks after that. But if we could get a report on that also.
Mr. Zatterberg, did you want to comment on that, or, because I know the Atura thing is something a little bit different, but yeah. It's same but different. Yeah, but go ahead, Brent.
Through your worship, yes, we can provide a report. Would it be an annual report that you'd be looking for, or a quarterly report?
Semi-annually, it's just, all I'm saying, that grant was, I was on council at the time for the host municipality agreement that we had with Atura, and that funding was going to be given to the municipality. But we wanted to keep, so we didn't go through this argument all the time, who's going to get it, who isn't. It's going to be a separate identity that looks after that. All right. And the board, which I understand, is just that if we get a report so that somebody's asking, saying, oh, okay, they were given it to this, and this, and you're similar to it, well, then go see the committee and make sure that your paperwork is in time so they could, look at your submission also. You know what I mean? It's just that when people ask us questions, that I'm prepared for it to give them that answer. So that's what I'm looking for, is just basically a semi-annual report. This is what was given, so we can go, okay, hey, yeah, if you need money, go put it in for it. And there we go.
Yeah, you're good with with that information, Mr. Zatterberg, then, and we can receive a report from the men. I guess on an as need, but I mean, quarterly or biannually would probably be good. So great, thank you, Councillor Shank. We do have a recommendation that we receive for information. If there's nothing further, we do have a recommendation. Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, about that, through you. I just have a question here regarding the administration fee. I was just going through the contract from 2018, and I see that they mention of an administration fee on there. But when we budget for this, and we put in our budget 10,000, have we been putting plus the administration fee, or has that administration fee been coming out of that 10,000?
Through your worship, I can speak to that. We don't have a specific budget for that, but it's a relatively small amount. So the $10,000 goes directly back to the applicants.
Okay, my main concern is that they do actually get the full amount and not.
That's my
So it'd be 10,000 plus the 175.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, okay. And is this something that we should be adjusting for in our budget? Or is that, as you said, it's a small fee, but I just want to make sure that the foundation receives the full amount and not have to be worried about the administration costs.
Yes, that's something that we can look at future years to ensure that's more accurate.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Patel. Is there anything further? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information proposed memorandum of understanding with the Community Foundation for Lennox and Addington CFFLA report, and further that council endorse the memorandum of understanding for the CFFLA to continue to administer the town's community grant program, and further that the mayor and the clerk be authorized to execute the agreement with CFFLA. Moved by Councillor Norrie, seconded by Councillor Pennell. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Establishing the Lennox and Addington OPP Detachment Board. And Madam Clerk, is that yours or Mr. Zatterberg's?
Through your worship, this dates back to 2021 in response to our requirements under the Community Safety and Policing Act of 2019. I just want to bring to council's attention that originally there had been a decision to make or to appoint heads of council to the board. That has changed, that requirement has changed, and it is any member of council, so council can choose whoever can appoint whoever they want for this. Staff are looking forward to the council appointment and then the advertised community appointment so that this board can start the work that's described in the report.
Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
This is going to be a board for the whole county.
Yeah, just to, if I may, to give you a little bit of history on it, was with the introduction of the new Police Services Act, or the Community Safety and Police Services Act. It was enacted in 2019, but it's just getting rolled out in 2024. My understanding of it is that each detachment catchment area has to have their own police services board, and it's legislated mandated by that statute. So just as Nappy as an example, they have to have a police services board for the whole county that they police. Now it's a little bit different that in the fact that because they police portions of Hastings County, they have to have their own board over there, but associated to Greater Napanee OPP. But it is legislated that the OPP have a police services board, run the police services board, which is going to encompass all of the 4 detachment areas. So again, it's legislated. It's beyond our control as far as the rollout or execution of it. But we do have an opportunity to have a member of council that sits on that board along with each of our lower tier governments, being Loyalist, Stone Mills, and Addington Highlands. There will be civilian people assigned or picked, I guess, by the municipality, and there'll also be a provincial proponent to it as well, which will be picked by the province. So yeah, so that's it. But it's all legislated by the new Police Services Act. Go ahead.
So we're going to have, are we going to have one contract then for the whole county?
Yeah, it won't, it's not a contract per se. Yeah.
The only reason why, because as you know, we pay the highest out of the 4 municipalities of the county. So therefore, if we have a lot of other residents, all right, from other, come here and it's calls for service, all right? So all I'm saying is if it's going to be one board, there should be one board for the whole county. And also that since of your OPP background, I nominate that the mayor as the head sit on this because it is a large price ticketed item. So I've sat on this board before. I was the chairman of the board in years past. So I understand the nuances of it. And it's something that at the level that they're doing now, I think we better have somebody with definitely some experience, and you being the head of council, you carry the most weight. So that's what my suggestion is.
Thank you, Councillor Shank. Just to address the costing part of it, it doesn't really necessarily affect, we are still going to get billed the same way as we are getting billed now, as will Loyalist, as will Stone Mills, as this is, I don't think any of us do, but we will still be billed the same way. This is more to do with the operations of it. So, and I know exactly what you're saying, and having lived this for a substantial amount of time in the last term of council, but we at the municipality are still going to get billed in the same method that it was. It's just that this police services board that's being created as a result of the new act is encompassing all of the detachment catchment area, which is all 4 lower tiers. And I guess the easy way to look at it is it's sort of kind of like a county council, except it has to do with the police services board. So, but the billing portion of it will be the same as what happens now, is that if something happens in the town of Greater Napanee, yes, we're going to get billed the same way that we are. And I agree that I don't like it either. So is there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation, and we're going to have to pick a name. And go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So I'll move that Mayor Terry Richardson be put into that slot.
And Madam Clerk, so we can just for the recommendation, if I put my name in there, if there's no resistance to that, we can just do the motion that way. Am I correct? Okay, thank you, Councillor Shank. That the council receive for information the establishing the Lennox and Addington OPP Detachment Board report, and further that council appoint Mayor Terry Richardson as the mayor of council on the detachment board, and further that council direct staff to advertise for the joint community member with Loyalist Township with the council appointees to the detachment board to review applications and make recommendations to the respective councils for community appointments. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Pennell. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
The only, this is going to be a statement, and it's because you're on YouTube. There will be people that will say, oh, he's a retired OPP, he's going to be too nice to him. For the year and a half that I've worked with the mayor, he will call a spade, and he will do his due diligence on behalf of the ratepayers of Napanee. So the people that are out there saying, how can you have a cop, you know what I mean? I'm sorry, sometimes if somebody's been there and done that job, knows when he's getting buffaloed and when he's not getting buffaloed. Just like Bob Norrie being, you know what I mean, in that same profession, they forgot more instead of us going through that learning curve. That's the reason why I suggested you also. So I want to put that out there right now to stop it before it goes nuts.
Thank you, Councillor Shank. I think from the last term of council with what we went through with the costing that happened at the jail, I can see that. I think most people can see and understand that things will be done above board. And I see Councillor Pennell smiling because I know he knows where I'm going with it. So go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
18 new beds coming to Quinny.
Yes, I saw that. Yes. But that's a whole other discussion at a whole other time. In any event, we do have a motion on the floor, moved by Councillor Shank and seconded by Councillor Pennell. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Bylaws. Madam Clerk, I don't believe we have any bylaws this evening. Information reports from members. Do we have any members of council that would like to speak to the information reports from members? Seeing none, inquiries. Do we have any members of council that would like to make any inquiries of staff that they can come back and provide some information to us at a later date? Seeing none, notices of motion. Do any members of council have any notices of motion to make this evening? Seeing none, new business. Any members of council have any new business with respect to moving forward? Seeing none, announcements. Any members of council? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. I was honored to represent council on Saturday as we were invited to attend the 2023-2024 Canadian Sea Cadets Napanee Ceremonial Review. It was held, as I said, on Saturday at the Selby Hall. It was very well attended. It was very well put on. I was very impressed with it and appreciated the invite for sure. But also it was nice to see how they rebounded since that terrible night, October 23rd, 2023, when we lost the arena. And that's where they were based out of. So it was very nice and very proud to represent council. And it was a very nice event. And it's nice to see these young men and women, getting prepared for what's about to happen in the world and stuff. So it's very nice. It was a great time. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Pennell, and thanks for going to that event. And it really is refreshing to see the resiliency. And I know it's in the big scheme of things, maybe not as big or important as other things in the world, but to see the resiliency of an organization like that came very close to losing just about everything they had and forged on. So thank you. Are there any other announcements anyone like to make? Go ahead, Councillor Norrie.
Just for your calendars, June 28th, 4 to 9 at Conservation Park. It's U20. It's an under 20 rock concert hosted by Michelle Hauser of Harmony. So if they're asking for anybody, especially on council, go for a walk that afternoon. It's a PA day, last day of school. Local bands, all under 20, and at the band shell. So just keep that in mind for your calendars. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Norrie. And I I've spoke and dealt with Michelle in the past, and I know that they're very keen and very eager to do that kind of thing. So thanks for bringing that to our attention. Is there any other announcements or comments? Seeing none, I'd just like to thank Mr. Zatterberg for sitting in the chair that he's been sitting in for the last, I guess, almost 12 months now, I guess. This will be his last meeting sitting up the front here, and he'll go back to his chair at the back. And I think he's kind of grinning at this point, but that's, I just would like to say thank you. And because at our next meeting, we'll have our new CAO that'll be sitting up front here, and we'll try not to break him too early on in life. So again, thank you, Mr. Zatterberg, for the work that you've done as the acting CAO. If there's nothing else, we do have the forward calendar that's next. I know we've all had an opportunity to look at it and see it. Is there anything on the forward calendar that anyone would like to have any questions answered or looked at or spoken to? Seeing none, also on there is the council resolution. Is there anything in the council resolution that anyone would like to speak to or address? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion to confirm the proceedings. Bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council Corporation Town of Greater Napanee, moved by Deputy Mayor Calvary, seconded by Councillor Pennell. Ready first, second, and finally passes 11th day of June 2024. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.